Oh, they just couldn't believe how a tiny fishing vessel could shoot down a vertibuck. My guess was that Silver Star really enjoyed the sound of her own voice, seeing as this was now the third time she had recounted the events leading up to her saving our flanks from the goddesses. Or how convenient it was that once the boat reached land, they just let me go. They threw around words like contaminated and dashite when talking about me. About me! They had locked every pony up inside of the multiplex inn, keeping only a few ponies in each room to stop them from fighting back. It was a small mercy to me that when they had rounded up the terrorist leaders, they signaled out Lily, Longbow, and I, bringing us here. Though small mercies only go so far when some pony like Silver is droning on and on. I was lucky they only went so far as to demote me to lieutenant, because they thought it was from the stress from the encounter that was making me unfit for my position. She slammed her forehooves down in anger on the table we sat at, glaring at me. They thought that pressure out there had gotten to me, and that a chance in the scenery world would do me some good. So they transferred me to the lenticular for some light patrol duty, where you have to show up and ruin my night. She huffed a few more times in anger, as her anger drifted away, closing her eyes with a sigh as a smile drew across her muzzle. So there I was, free of your terrorist hooves. No. Fuck hearing this again. Oh, give it a rest. I rolled my eyes, cutting her off and getting a growl from her. Then for once she surprised me. In her anger she flipped the table and propelled herself onto me, dropping me back to the floor painfully. She sat on my chest, pressing her hooves into my neck as I tried my best to keep breathing. Rest? You don't get any rest. I've seen that look before in a pony's eyes. The look when the absolute hatred of someone had removed any and all inhibitions from their actions. On the Gallant, she had been the by-the-book sounding officer, but something inside her must have snapped from when we made her go through. You don't get it, do you? She gave a quick laugh, telling me that having me under her like this was pure joy. You're mine, and I'm going to make you pay. That every mud-slinging primitive in this settlement pays for what you did to me. As my lungs screamed, I realized that we had turned her into another 42. The doors to the hallway opened up as Granite stepped in. Even through her armor, I could tell that she was disapproving of what Silver Star was doing. Silver Star got to her hooves as the darkness clawed in around my vision, my lungs drawing in a long breath as I could finally get some air. She softly fluttered into the air on the other side of the room as the power-armored mare walked over to me and effortlessly set the chair I was tied into back upright. Deviate again from the interrogation, and I'll be forced to relieve you from duty. The cold tone of the sergeant wasn't winning her any favors from the lieutenant, but I was thankful that some pony up there still at least went by the book. She flipped the table back over to where it had been and left without another word. But the second that door shut, Silver Star relaxed. This simple fact gave me an idea that sent the gears in my head into a flurry. You're wrong. You are going to take your flying friends, and you're going to go back up above a cloud cover. Like this never happened. I watched as my words brought back her devious smile. I'll have you know that we have 5 megaspells aimed right at your raptor. She let out a good laugh. Impossible! Our recon groups would have seen the missiles. She glared at me, her smile wider than before. You'd have to have a more convincing lie than that. Well, that didn't go as well as I'd hoped it would. What if I told you there were 25 Steel Rangers with Balefire egg launchers on their way here? I grinned back, hoping my bluff sounded at least believable. I mean, we did have a whole squad of them already here, and they saw what we were up against. Once again, we would have seen them by now. She shook her head, looking disappointed. I'm afraid the ones in this settlement are the only ponies for miles. Would you believe me that we have an asshole with a machine gun? I squinted as I truly had nothing left to use against her. Though this one hadn't technically been a lie, seeing as how I don't know if our merc friend was found under his rubble pile. Longbow leaned forward. How about we talk about the safety of your offshore desalination project? Unlike the yelling of earlier, super intelligent Longbow was something I loved to see a lot in our relationship. The words looked like they were hot coals burning into Silver Star's mind as her eye twitched slightly. How do you know about... She stopped, her muscles on her face relaxing as she sighed again and gave off a smile. No matter. You are here. You can hardly... I'm going to stop you there. I watched Longbow as she crafted words almost as effortlessly as I or Lily could, tailoring their inflection to burrow deep into Silver Star's head. First of all, I'm going to tell you that my mother commands a ship. Next is that she can destroy that floating pile of junk you say passes as a research base, on a whim. And the last thing I want to tell you is that there's no such thing as no witnesses. Somebody here saw your little flying light show, and if we die, she'll find it out. Or she will tear down every Enclave base for revenge. Turning back to what she said at the base, maybe we should have taken a bit more time to get to know her mother. You know, to keep from being torn to shreds if she ever thinks that I wronged Longbow in any way. You talk a good game, but you're making threats you can't back up. She smiled, stepping back under the table. You forget that once I warned Navarro, no ship will ever get within distance to do anything before we blast it from the water. We did. Longbow timed her response perfectly, drilling in that fear enough that Silver Star was the one on the brink of losing it again. And sure, you could kill us and take your chances, but your command would have to reconsider any damage information you gave us caused. She's making this sort of play. I have no idea she could talk like this. This level of diplomacy. Think about it. You're going to call in that same surfacers that you held captive, have threatened to destroy a project they now suddenly know more about? Longbow wore a sly grin. The word they'll be using around you then is treason. That was perfection. Silver Star looked like she was about to explode on us again, when something else added to the list of surprises tonight. But Longbow's one word surprised not only me, but the others as well. There's a way we can both win here. I'm listening. Silver Star growled, keeping her gaze locked onto Longbow. We make a deal. You leave here without another shot fired, and you run back to your safe haven in the sky. Yeah, we went with that, but what's in it to make her go? Longbow shifted her position in her chair, the ropes dropping off her as she brought her hooves to the table, much to our amazement. And you leave with the locations of the listening devices we have planted on your project. You can present them to your commanding officer. Make up a heroic story of how you beat the information out of a terrorist leader. I don't care. They'll probably realize that you aren't as far gone as they thought, and give you a promotion. Silver Star stroked her chin with a hoof, closing her eyes as she thought it over. You know I can't trust that you will give me the real locations of the listening devices, if such objects actually exist. She canted her head and glanced back at Longbow. Give me the frequency they transmit on as well. Not until we have a deal. Longbow smiled, her expression telling me that she was screaming with joy inside. Deal, Silver Star said, trotting over to the door and hooving it open. Sergeant Granite, inform the lenticular that we will be departing shortly, and for them to get me a line ready to General Aurora's office when I get on board. Yes, ma'am. She saluted and looked into the room. Shall I inform the other sergeants that the detained are free to go as well? The moment that passed before Silver Star's answer was the longest moment in my life. She replied simply, yes. Giving off a sigh, she turned back to us as the gray-suited mare trotted off down the hallway. I held up my end. Now, give us the locations and the frequency. 6.5 hertz. Longbow chimed in as her magic undid the rope around my chair. And don't bother sweeping the barracks. We had no interest in the personal affairs of your scientists. Silverstar's eyes twitched again, coming to the realization on just how much of a breach that was. Now go. Oh, remember. She put her hoof in front of me, attempting to imitate the sound of an explosion going off as she spread her hooves. You remember this as well. Next time, you won't be so lucky to have leverage over me. She sneered and turned, trotting out the door as both Lily and I stood up from our chairs. I looked to Longbow with an impressed amazement. Just a quick question. Lily spoke up as she looked her over. Have you ever considered employment in the mercantile business? Too bad, Lily. I stepped up forward and pulled Longbow into a long, heated kiss. We both savored it for a moment before I broke it off, looking back at her with a smile. She's one treasure I'll never let any pony take. As the Pegasi above the cloud cover mended the holes that our cannon and the enormous boat had punched in it, the task we had on our hoof was to assess the damage of the settlement, and to salvage as much as we could from what was left. Tiger Lily had called me into her office to help her keep track of what the others were finding out, and we had been sitting there in silence for the last few minutes working. Then there was a knock on the door. Twain, as I found out our faithful foul-mouthed Merc was named, came in with a smirk on and a fresh gash across his muzzle on his cheek. Both bars are completely wasted, though there isn't enough broken glass to account for the fighting. He winced and pressed a hoof for my wound. My bet is that the Enclave friends found our hospitality most generous as they looted the damn place. Though I found one bottle. That explains the cut on him. Let me guess. Lily spoke up, sounding like this wasn't the first time this had happened. You tried to bribe his friend into bed again. Now that I look at that, that could be a Griffin Talon wound. Just one pass. That's all that was made. Twain sounded like he honestly thought he was in the right. Not my fault, the butch one has to be all protective. He eyed me over and shrugged. No offense to her lifestyle choice, that is. I'll get the bandages and peroxide, Lily said as she pushed herself from the chair and swiftly walked out. As I followed her out, my gaze stopped on the unique battle saddle that he wore, seeing a whole lot of custom parts on it, with the most intriguing being the feed mechanism on the 4 ammo belts. And that's a nice-looking battle saddle. Who does the work on it? I asked, putting the notes I had scribbled down with a yawn. With all the rushing to get things done, I had forgotten how late it was, and I hadn't slept since we'd left the garage around noon. Oh, you like it? He twisted his body to show it off. I got it from a guy I know out in Dodge, who did most of the work, but the cross feed was customly made by Lily herself. She fucking ripped me off good in the deal, though. Lied to me about how much that I was trading for it was worth. Well, now if you didn't do your research, that's what you get. That fucking thing's worth 10 times what she paid me for it. Now he had my attention. What was it? Lily isn't opposed to swindling customers, but that was downright too much of a rip-off for some pony. Maybe she didn't know what it was worth. Some ministry key. One part of some sort of weapon or something. Colored me more intrigued. Figured it'd be more valuable, so I sold it to her. Turns out some big shot out west is looking for him, offering 10 times as much as she paid. I found the flyer in here, so there's no way she missed it. Well, I'll have to talk to her about it. Anything Ministry Morale related could make her a target for 42. The gears in my head shot me something else to ask as my eyes washed over the blue striped ammo box in his saddlebag. Just a quick question, though. Where did you find a whole case of star metal rounds? He smiled at me with a pompous grin. Oh, you won't believe how many merchants I've had to kill to get my hooves on this many. I couldn't do more than blink at his answer, as it stopped my mind dead in its tracks. You... What? Calm down. It's just a joke. He snickered to himself before clearing his voice, giving me a stern look as he answered me again. But seriously, it was a lot of work to sell that many foals. You're a fucking monster! I screamed and had to hold myself back from beating his skull in, giving my mind time to work out if he was kidding this time or not. The foals we had to bury on the way to the pool felt like years ago to me, but put a fire in my blood all the same. As I ran his words through my mind a few times, I was certain he wasn't serious. Even as a joke, there was just some things you don't touch. You're easily wound up, you know that? It was payment for another job I did. He rolled his eyes and waved his hoof around to calm me down. I took a few deep breaths as I did, watching him with the last embers of my rage burning out while he hoofed at his chin again. I never found anything big enough to shoot that needed these to use on, until tonight. It was worth it, though, seeing as they punched right through their barriers. Speaking of, I'm a stallion of my word. So, what do you want as payment? I sat down, hoofing up my saddlebags to see if I had anything I could give as collateral if he asked for too much. Well, got anything extremely valuable? I want something to hold over Lily's head so I can get that key back. Just as he finished talking, she ran out of the corner with his supplies, setting them on the floor as he gave her a smile. Well, let me see. I hoofed open my bag, pulling out odds and ends, stopping as I hoofed out one piece of paper I didn't remember. As I flipped it over and read it, it was the note that went along with the shining Defender energy pistol that Brass had saved my life with. Ooh, I love important pieces of paper. Lily bit down on it and snatched the paper from my hooves. It didn't matter to me, seeing as the gun was the real prize. I went back to looking through the things, pulling out the twins and setting them aside. You want a piece of paper? Twain murmured before grunting, as he drizzled the peroxide over his wound. I can give you a literal shit tons of sealed paper from the mill in Vancouver, if you're ever that inclined to want something as common as that. Lily spit the sheet out onto her desk. Not just any paper. This is important paper. She sat down and continued as she looked at him with a smile. Ponies only carry papers with important information on it. If it's not in a ruin, or a pony isn't carrying it, then odds are that it's not important. That was just scavenging 101. Every pony in the waste knew that. She grew wide-eyed as she read it. Backlash? Do you know what you got here? You've got a collector in New Pegasus who's been looking for this gun. Do you have it? It's expensive? Twain asked abruptly, pulling something from Barter 101 that Lily shouldn't have missed. Well, her loss. Yes, very. She gasped and covered her muzzle with her hoof. I shouldn't have told you that. That's what I want as payment, then. He grinned sadistically as his annoyance finally paid off. That was a smart move by him, seeing as collectors putting out a contract normally have to pay a finder's fee on top of what the item's worth. And as Lily did her the best, her fee is quite high. Backlash? Lily now pulled my attention back to her, moving a drawer open in her desk. Consider this payment and thanks for helping save Futura. She slid a small, golden metal rectangle to me. Are you kidding me? Twain shouted with aggravation, meaning this was more than likely the key he was looking for. I hoofed it over and looked at it more closely. If this was a key, it certainly was of a design I've never seen before. But of course, that's a common theme with old world relics. I tried to drop it into my saddlebags, but misjudged the distance, watching it hit the floor and rolled against the bottom of Lily's desk. I instinctively just leaned down to reach for it, my lack of depth perception making me smack my empty eye socket onto her desk as well. You know, you look exhausted. When was the last time you got any sleep? Lily's voice held a genuine concern. Tell you what, I can handle most of it from here. Why don't you all go join the others and get some rest? We can finish telling everything left over when you get up. Thanks. I finally scooped the key piece into my bags and hoofed the twins back in as well. Do you have some blankets I could borrow? The Marauder isn't going to be cold tonight. No, no, no. She cut me off with a wave of her forehoof. You're free to spend the night in one of the rooms at the multiplex. There should be plenty of rooms for you all. She smiled and arranged some papers on her desk. Go on. I'll still be here when you get up. Thank you, Lily. I nodded and put my saddlebags on while Twain turned and left. I was just about to exit when she spoke up again. Actually, Backlash, could I talk to you for just one more minute? Her voice was hesitant, sorrow coming through more than anything now. I nodded and stepped back inside, shutting the door. It's not me you should thank. It's Willow. She gave me a soft smile and looked down at her desk. She was my only friend for most of my life. Without her, Futura wouldn't have been on this map. I don't know much, but she told me how we both left Ponyville together, looking to make it big. I thought back to when we had talked on the Gallant, which in total wasn't really a lot. My words roused a soft laugh from Lily. Yeah, but I bet she didn't tell you that we left together. Goddesses, our parents were so angry at us, and our father never did forgive her for it. Young mares in love. Lily's sad tones were constant, and I could tell from her words that the love she felt was still strong. But as we realized, living on our own made us less than desirable to one each other. We decided to just stay friends. And then, with a stroke of luck, she found Snowshoe, and I found my husband. My relationship didn't so much work out, but Willow and Snow, they were meant for each other. Then, why would Willow leave? I asked as the gears in my head spun to work out this mystery, oblivious to the fact that the question was obviously one that weighed heavily on Lily. She and Snow planned on having their first foal during the next few months, when it was the safest from attacks from the outside. But that winter was especially harsh on us, and Snow came down with pneumonia. Lily's grim face reflected how mine was, as pneumonia was not something you normally came back from in the wasteland. You just had to wait until your body couldn't fight anymore. Shortly after him, she got it as well. She pulled through, but Snow and her unborn foal... I'm sorry. That's all I wanted to say to Willow. She had lost everything in her life, and now thinks that she needs to make up for it by attempting to get rid of the goddess for good on her own. Yeah, me too. She wiped the tears that had silently dripped down on her cheeks. You better go get some rest, and we'll talk more tomorrow. I hooved open the door, stepping out and taking one last look at Lily, who nodded and smiled as I shut it. I walked down the hall, my legs far too tired to bring me up to a trot, as my whole body screamed for relief. As I walked through the charred and splintered front doorway, the light from the rising sun had already brightened as black skies to their normal grays. The walk to the multiplex wasn't a long one, but it did give me time to reflect on the events of the day. We had accomplished, it wasn't exactly a short list, seeing as we had gotten the Rangers to fight beside us, learned 42 was still alive, completed what was normally a 2-day relaxed drive in only 10 hours, cleared Sherbert's bunker, fought 42, saved Futura, and dealt with the Enclave. I stopped and scrunched up my face as I wondered how exactly I should consider that just over a short list. I shook it off, treading slowly over the dirt lawn of the large mansion-like multiplex inn. What, at a glance, looked like a monstrous house was actually 4 two-story homes all squished together, built to sustain 4 large families. It was the obvious choice to change to an inn when Futura got up and running. My legs protested every step to the second floor, and my mind felt sluggish as I wondered if I should sleep in any other pony's room, or trying to find my own. As I pushed open the first door I found, the universe decided to provide me with another small favor when Longbow shifted under the sheets in the bed and looked up groggily. She smiled as she saw it was me. Hey, sorry I woke you up. I stepped in and shut the door. I carefully set my saddlebags down before going to work and removing my barding. Turns out the zipper had melted shut, and the only way I could get it off was tearing the fabric. So I did. As much as I thought it would help, my friends have provided more protection than any barding I've worn. I dropped the tattered remains of the jumpsuit and climbed into the bed with a groan. Longbow sighed as I flopped down next to her. I couldn't do it. She spoke up, sounding ashamed for some reason. She got my worried gaze as I lay there. When we found Sherbert, Casserole told me to open the door. I found the failsafe wiring inside the panel, but I couldn't activate it. As much as I wanted to, I just couldn't bring myself to condemn her. You're a good pony, Longbow. Above all, you know what you did was the right thing. I hoofed her mane aside, looking into her eyes as she gave me a nod. I scooted myself closer to her, pulling her into my hold as the warmth melted away all my pains. I think it helped her as well, seeing as she relaxed. This was heaven to me. No absurd emergencies to run off and solve, no immediate danger to where we were staying, and no worries for the ones that I cared about that would come to any harm. It was just nice and quiet. That is, until my ear perked with the moaning noises coming from down the hall. This was the first time I could actually hear Carlotta and Skyline, but for once, the thought didn't disturb me. Why can't they just celebrate our win until after we are all asleep? Longbow groaned and buried her face into her pillow. All I want to do is get as much sleep as I can. A smile crossed my face as the gears in my head clicked out the last great idea of the night. Or, that perked got her attention. We can try to show them up, for once. Longbow gave a small, light-hearted laugh at my suggestion. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm worn out enough to sleep just yet. As I listened to more of the action across the hall, Longbow hooked a hoof around my neck and pulled me close, nuzzling me softly before she whispered into my ear. Fine, but I'm on top first. When I woke up, it was completely dark outside, and my pip-buck told me that it was 8:30. I joined Longbow down for a shower down the hall, finding that even after the session we had this morning, the hot water had only revigorated our lusts, and we decided to have a quick shower after this one would be best to actually get cleaned up. As I walked down back to our bedrooms, unlike the last month, today I felt better than anything, like I was unstoppable. So it came as no surprise that when I opened my door, something unexpected there was to greet me. The White One has instructed the great and powerful goddess to give you a message. The towering form of the purple alicorn stood in the middle of the room, making my legs lock up as she spoke in a normal tone of voice in my head. We are to tell you that the wasteland needn't fear us any longer, as an agreement has been made. We shall stay where we are only until the White One is no more. But on that day, we shall return to the wasteland, and we will retrieve what we seek. Before I could do anything, she was gone with a flash. Willow had done it. Though, as good as I felt about what we've accomplished, it was in that moment that I felt humbled. Doing this did more for the wasteland than anything I've ever done. There was no telling how many lives she just saved by keeping the alicorns under control. Longbow opened the bedroom door down the hall, trotting out as her magic wrapped around her mane into a towel. I sat down hard on my hind legs as they gave out, causing her to rush over to me in panic. It's over. Willow saved us. I hooked my hooves around Longbow and squeezed her tight. The alicorns are gone from the wastes. That's wonderful! Longbow returned her hug, her voice sounding the same as mine. While glad it was over, we couldn't help but feel like Willow's sacrifice was something that she shouldn't have had to pay on her own. We've got to tell the others. Elder Strudel, we so relieved that our patrols won't have to avoid them any longer, and... She pushed off with a smile, trotting to the room ahead. Stay with me. I spoke up, making her stop as she levitated her armor off the floor. She looked at me with a confused smile. I don't plan on leaving you, Backlash. We've still got to plan on the bridge attack. She resumed putting on her armor, clamping down the leg pieces before I spoke up again. No, I want you to come stay with me. With us. With Sky and I. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. A nervousness that I hadn't felt since Sprocket washed over me. I want to be with you for the rest of my days. Backlash, I can't just leave the Rangers. Her expression was torn between guilt and sadness. They're my family. My life. I can't just leave. The chest piece clicked as it secured her, her horn glowing as she took the helmet and floated it beside her. She walked up and put an armored hoof on my shoulder, looking to me as her mane hid half of her sorrowful face. I want to. Believe me, I do. I can't leave them. As I had come to learn, family was everything out in the wasteland, and there was no way I would make her suffer for my selfishness. Then, we'll find a way to see each other. We'll make it work. I smiled, brightening her expression. I leaned forward and gave her a kiss on the cheek, watching as she blushed heavily through her coat. I just need you to do your best not to let your mother go after me if she doesn't approve. At the very least, a 30-second head start would be immensely helpful. Longbow laughed and nodded. I'll be sure to cheer for you from the sideline if she ever does. She levitated my saddlebags onto me and hoofed my mane from her face. Now, after the workout we had, what do you say we get ourselves some breakfast? Just the mention of food made my stomach grumble. You have no idea how good that sounds right now. I nodded, and let her walk from the room, hoofing the door closed slowly as my eye caught a glimpse of my ruined barding on the floor. I no longer feared that Longbow would end up like Sprocket. I cared too much for her to spend time worrying about breaking the promise I made to her so long ago. No, our relationship was different, and now I felt I was the one in his place, where she was the one doing her best to protect me. As the door clicked shut, I turned to follow Longbow out. I felt it in my mind that I have finally gotten through that chapter in my life. Now, the only issue I had left to resolve was how we would deal with 42 in the final fight. Level up. +9 big guns, +6 barter. New perk, all bucked up, rank 3. You are the avatar of endurance and survival, living through punishments that other ponies in the wasteland might die from just thinking about. This final rank gives you a 10% chance to ignore the penalties of injuries and status effects around each round you are under half health.